Welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. This week, Hermetic targeting and Bertrand Russell. I was listening to the Rusty Quill Gaming podcast, and they have a character called Sir Bertram MacGuffin, and he reminded me of Bertrand Russell. I have no idea why, but let's charge on. Russell said some interesting things about the meaning of sentences, which may have useful effects on our understanding of the spoken component of Hermetic spellcasting. So, Russell started off being very big on the ideas of Meinong, who received his own episode earlier in the year. Russell likes the idea that a word is defined by the thing it denotes. It does not, crucially, reflect an object out in the realm of forms. Russell isn't a fan of the emporium that is Meinong's jungle. His initial way around this is to suggest that words don't denote things. Well, actually, only 4 words denote things: this, that, these, those. The other words that you think are denoting things, including names, are actually just describing those things. When you cast a spell on an orange, Russell's argument is that you are casting a spell on that thing, denotation, which is an orange, description. Russell's longer form of this argument is that when you say the current King of France is bald, you sense it's false, but what's the logical form of the argument of its falseness? You can't test it, so it's not empirically false, except in the sense that it's not empirically true, it's ambivalent. So to get back to a truth by valence, he says that what appears to be a single sentence is actually 3 sentences. There is a type of thing which is the King of France. That thing which uniquely has the properties of King of France is the material King of France. A property of the thing mentioned previously is baldness. The second sentence is the one that takes care of the in the original sentence. That's the King of France is bald. The is taken care of by the thing which uniquely has the properties of King of France is King of France. It's the one which fails if a modern person was targeting the King of France, because there is no thing which uniquely has the properties of King of France. Meinong's jungle may well have a King of France in it, because the King of France is something that you can coherently discuss, but that doesn't mean that in a realistic, denotive sense, there is a person who is the King of France. Now, Russell uses this to enforce bivalency in language, as I said before. There either is a King of France or there isn't a King of France. There is no quality of King of Francishness which is seeping out of the magic realm into the material realm, as per Plato and Meinong. When you say, I cast pilum of fire at my enemy, you are clearly in Russell's sort of world, because the magic spirit that guides the pilum doesn't go through a list of the people you hate, work out which of them is your worst enemy, and then hit them. There is an implied that enemy, and the spirit follows the implication unless you fumble the spell. This is also handy because it prevents self-reference in per vim spells, but I'm leaving that there. So the grammatical form seems to be different from the logical form in Mythic Europe, which may be an artifact of us playing in modern English. The Magi do seem to know this. They've spotted a difference between the signifier and the signified because they have translated spells from one language to another. They also know fairy speak a language which is basically a jumble of metasyntax, so that people hear what is intended by the speaker in the listener's own language, rather than in a separate fairy language. For Russell, from this emerges the idea of a logical fiction. Logical fictions are things which we can talk about and have meaning and are even physically embodied, but in a real sense they don't exist. The fiction is a shorthand for linguistic complexity. As an example, when we talk about what a committee or a covenant decides, the committee or covenant doesn't really decide anything. What happens is that each person in the committee or covenant decides on a subject, and then that gets aggregated together, and then each member of the committee acts on that aggregation. Similarly, the average grog in a covenant may have 1.94 legs, but that doesn't mean that any particular grog has 1.94 legs. An average person is not embodied in a single person. To me, these logical fictions are a new class of fairy I need to think about. they are a story after all. Russell also has an interesting idea on how we know about things. He has two classes of knowing. He denies that to know a thing you need to completely comprehend that thing, because at that level you could never know anything. I have a desk in front of me. I know I have a desk in front of me. I have no idea how wide the desk is. Even if I knew how wide the desk is, I don't know how deep the desk is. No matter how much I learn about this individual desk, there will always be more to learn. So you don't need complete comprehension, because you could then never know anything. You either know a thing by personal experience, or you know that there is a type of thing, and that there is one object which fulfills the description of that type of thing, and thus it is the thing. His ideas illuminate a question about the workings of Hermetic magic, which fills in the rough details when you create things. When you want to make a line, you get a line, even if you only know lines by drawing from a bestiary. The usual explanation is that the spell gets extra detail from the world of forms. I don't know who originally said this on the ancient mailing list, but you don't know how many wrinkles are on the back of the ears of an elephant. Magic fills that detail in. The problem is that doesn't make sense. In Platonic magic, the whole point of forms is that they don't have accidents. Plato's sword is not sharp or blunt because it has only swordishness. It's got nothing that's not swordishness. Plato's lion has no colour and no appetite and no fur because it's incapable of being a material object. It has no accidents. So how can the form of lions tell you how many whiskers your lion should have? How many hairs are on the head of the lion? What colour are they? How can you dredge a form for accidents when by definition they have none? Russell says that most of the things you know because you're familiar with the thing. You have direct contact with the thing, or you have memory of contact with the thing. Your other way of knowing things is being aware that there is a type of thing and that a particular object has the properties of that thing. Your magus knows that the prima of House Tremare is Poena, even if he has never met Poena, because he's aware of a class of things called primi, which intersects with another class of things called Tremare Magi, and there is an object, which is called Poena, at the intersection of these two classes. He later suggests your knowledge of types of things derives from acquaintance, so that the latter type of knowing is due to an accumulation of objects in direct sensory experience. In much Hermetic magic, you can strike at things in the first class, that is, things you are directly experiencing, but not things in the second class, unless you have arcane connection, and the arcane connection is the thing which allows you to say that to the spirit which runs your spells. A name is not a definite description lacking a that, but a true name, because it is a definite description, is an arcane connection. So to wrap up Russell's views, the only real things in targeting instructions are this, that, these, those. Everything else is a description. A name is a description. A noun is a description. I create a lion is really, I create this thing, and this thing is a lion. The lion is extrapolated from your experience rather than from the form of lions. Arcane connections allow you to state this and that beyond your immediate sensory experience. In the gap between the logical and grammatical form, there is likely a new type of fairy. Your saga may vary.